Ask most founders what's hard about hiring, and they'll point at the hiring itself. Writing the posts, running the reviews, making the offer. After helping place more than 3,000 professionals across 40 plus countries, I can tell you that was almost never the part that actually hurt people. The part that quietly wrecks businesses is ending up with the wrong person in the seat. Because anyone can post a job, anyone can collect a stack of resumes and run a few interviews, building a team of people who take a real ownership, solve problems, hit their numbers, and push the business forward. That's completely different. And most of the mistakes that lose it happen long before anyone sits down for an interview. The wrong role, the wrong expectations, the wrong process. And by the time a founder feels it, they've usually burned a few weeks, sometimes months, on the wrong candidate. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through the entire hiring framework we've used to help thousands of companies attract, evaluate, hire, onboard, and keep top talent. How to attract A players instead of desperate applicants, where the good people actually are, how to filter out of the weak ones before you ever get on a call, the skill tests that expose real performers, the interview that makes bluffing fall apart, how to onboard people so they actually succeed, and how to turn all of it into a hiring machine that keeps working. And stick around, because near the end, I'll show you the single biggest hiring mistake founders make, the one that causes even great employees to fail. Let's start with the foundation, the hiring mindset shift. Most founders hire backwards, and it's not really their fault. They're overwhelmed, they're behind, they're slammed. So they hire the moment the pain gets loud enough. That's reactive hiring. And reactive hiring is just a desperation with a job post attached, and desperation makes bad decisions. Here's the shift that changes everything. Most founders hire to get a task covered. Someone to do the social media, someone to handle the inbox, someone to deal with customer service. But those aren't outcomes, they're activities. And top performers don't get excited about a pile of vague activities. They get excited about clear results they're trusted to own. So instead of writing, "We need a social media manager," you write, "We need someone who can generate 20 qualified inbound leads a month through content." Instead of "We need an executive assistant," it becomes "We need someone who can give the founder back 10 hours a week and keep the inbox at 0 every day." The sharper the outcome, the sharper the candidate you pull. A players move towards clarity. The average ones drift towards ambiguity, because ambiguity is where you can hide. Once you know exactly what outcome you're hiring for, the next problem shows up fast. Getting the right people to actually apply. And this is where a lot of founders lose before the game even starts. How to attract top talent. The biggest misconception in hiring is that great people are out there looking for a job. Most of them aren't. The best candidates are usually already employed, already producing, already growing somewhere. Which means your opportunity isn't competing against nothing, it's competing against the thing they already have. And the first impression they get out of you is your job post. Most job posts are brutal to read. They sound like a legal document, a wall of requirements, a wall of responsibilities. A long list of everything the company wants taken care of. But a strong candidate isn't reading that, wondering what you want from them. They're wondering what exactly they'd be joining. That's why every good hiring process actually starts with culture. What do you stand for? What kind of person thrives inside your company? What does winning here actually look like? At Remote Latinos, we run on 5 core values: mastery beyond excellence, authentic integrity, relentless unity, aligned communication, and momentum in action. And every hire gets measured against them. Skills you can teach. Values are a lot harder to install in someone who doesn't already have them. Get your outcomes and your values clear, and the job post almost writes itself. The clarity is the thing that creates attraction, but pulling in applicants is only half of it. Now, you've got to separate the serious people from everyone who just hits apply. The filtering system. This is where founders waste most of the time. And it's almost always the same reason. They interview too many people because they filtered too few. The goal is to eliminate candidates before the interview, not during it. The first layer is your application questions. Questions that force someone to actually think, that reveal how they communicate, what they've really done, and whether they take ownership. Then bury a small hidden instruction in there. Something like, put the word purple in the subject line, or start your video by naming your favorite productivity tool. It sounds almost too simple, but you'd be amazed how many people miss it. And the ones who miss it just told you how they follow in directions. The second layer is a short intro video. Nothing fancy, 60 to 180 seconds. Who are you? Why are you interested? Why do you think you're a fit? In about 2 minutes, you get a read of communication, confidence, and energy and professionalism that a resume could never give you. The third layer is where companies really separate themselves. The skill test. An interview tells you who talks well. A skill test tells you who actually performs. So give them a real task from their first 30 days, not a theoretical puzzle. For an executive assistant, that's an inbox management, calendar cleanup, drafting an email in your voice. For sales, it's objection handling, role play, a mock discovery call. For operation, is documenting a process or untangling a real problem. The people who do this well are overwhelmingly the same people who do the job well once they're hired. Now you've got the strongest few. The question becomes, which one is actually the right hire? The interview process. Most interviews run backwards. The founder spends the whole conversation asking questions and listening to answers. But the best interviews don't just ask, they create situations because you want to see how someone thinks, not just hear how they describe themselves. We run two. The first is about culture and alignment. Can this person fit the team? Can they thrive in your environment? Do their values actually line up with yours? The second is about execution, and that's where the role play and live scenarios come in. Real problems solved in front of you. The second interview quietly separates the people who prepared from the people who winged it. One question we lean on, tell me about a failure and what you actually changed in your process because of it. The answer tells you almost everything. A players own it and point straight to what they adjust. Everyone else points at the circumstances and people around them. But even if you pick the perfect candidate, there's one move that can still undo all of it. And it happens after the offer is already signed. By now you can see what top talent actually looks like and how to spot it. The hardest part is doing this consistently because sourcing, screening, testing, and interviewing eats an enormous amount of time, and most founders simply don't have it to spare. That's the reason we built Remote Latinos. We've already done the heavy part. We find, vet, and qualify high-performing professionals across Latin America so founders can spend their time growing the business instead of digging through hundreds of applications. If you want help building your team, head over to remotelatinos.com or comment higher so we can help you find your next remote team member. Now let's talk about what happens after the hire. The biggest hiring mistake founders make. Here's the mistake I promised you at the start. The one that causes even great hires to fail. And it has nothing to do with picking the wrong person. It happens after the offer is signed. A company will spend 6 weeks recruiting and then about 30 minutes onboarding and then wonder why the performance never showed up. Great people don't need their hand held, but they absolutely need direction. They need structure, clarity, and a real picture of what success looks like. That's why every hire should walk in with a 30, 60, 90-day game plan, knowing exactly what success looks like, which KPIs matter, what outcomes they own, and who to go to when they're stuck. A players don't want micromanagement, they want to know where the goalposts are. Give them that, and your retention climbs in a way that's hard to believe until you watch it happen. Which brings us to the last piece, the thing that turns hiring from a stressful one-off event into something predictable. Building a hiring machine. The companies that hire well aren't lucky. They've just turned into a hiring system where every role runs through the same sequence. Define the outcome, set the non-negotiable, source on purpose, filter hard, test against real work, interview with intention, onboard with a plan, then review consistently. That's the machine. And once it exists, hiring stops being a gamble. Instead of crossing your fingers and hoping a great person shows up, you've got a process that pulls them in on repeat. That's how companies actually scale, not on luck, on systems. If you've made it this far, you're holding something most founders never quite figure out. Most of them treat hiring like a talent problem. After enough reps, you start to see it for what it really is, a process problem. Build a system that makes good people easy to identify, and finding them stops being the hard part because A players leave clues. The only question is whether your process knows how to read them. The companies that win over the next decade won't necessarily have the biggest budgets. They'll have the best hiring systems, the ones that let them attract, identify, and keep great people faster than anyone around them. That's the real competitive advantage. If you're serious about building a better team, becoming a sharper leader, learning the system behind world-class hiring, make sure you're subscribed. That's exactly what we break down in this channel: recruiting, leadership, remote teams, culture, and scaling businesses through its people. And once you get hiring right, something clicks. Most of what looks like business problems were people problems the whole time. That's what we're here to help you solve.